Okay, why don't we kick it off, Scott? I'm Jim Schwab with Rosterfy. I am the commercial lead and channel manager for Rosterfy in North America. Happy to be with you today for Breaking the Silos with Blackbaud and Rosterfy. We're going to talk about volunteers as a strategic asset and using our smart technologies and data intelligence to think about a different way rather than just operationally. Think about volunteers as a strategic asset. Integrate with your fundraising team and rev up your fundraising efforts. Scott, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thanks, Jim, and good morning, good afternoon, everyone. So again, Scott Eisenstein. I've been here at Blackbaud for about 23 years, specializing in the analytics and data intelligence business unit at Blackbaud. First 18 years of my career was spent selling data intelligence, and for the past 6 years, I've been sort of serving as a solutions consultant, partnering with organizations like yours that are exploring the consideration of implementing kind of data-driven solutions to support your great missions. Before that, I worked in development as a fundraiser in Chicago for about 13 years. So definitely have some of that background to help support these conversations today, and looking forward to getting to know all of you. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to turn the camera off here and we're going to advance on the slides. So many of you probably know Blackbaud. Some or most of you might know Rosterfy. We're both global players. Rosterfy, we're a very global company providing volunteer management systems in 35 countries. Our position in the market is very much we're an enterprise volunteer management system company. We provide workforce volunteer management solutions for organizations that are 500 to 1,000 volunteers and above. There are many other simple solutions for the smaller end of the market. We tend to play in the mid-market to the strategic and enterprise level. And Blackbaud has a range, of course, of fundraising, analytics, communication, campaign, fundraising solutions that we all know and love. Blackbaud and Rosterfy have partnered over the last few years in a big way globally to bring each other new solutions, integrated offerings to increase our footprint and to bring more value to our customers. And many of you, you're all in different situations right now. Some of you have a very siloed volunteer management solution not connected to your fundraising CRM. Some of you may have done that first step to connect your CRM and your volunteer management database. We're going to talk about that, but we're also going to talk about the next evolution of that today in doing some analytics on your volunteer database to take those engaged volunteers and communicate smartly and use them more as a strategic asset. So a little bit more here about Rosterfy. As I mentioned, our typical customers have a very large volunteer program. So we're talking about big food banks, Blessings of Hope in Pennsylvania, British Heart Foundation in the UK, the largest nonprofit in the UK, Oxfam, US Hunger, many household names that we all know. Typical customers for Rosterfy. So we all know the challenges that we face. Donor fatigue, increased demand for services from your constituents. We all have limited resources, limited funding. There's burnout for staff, data security, and many times you can't get the reporting out of your current solutions so you can demonstrate the impact internally to your board, to your management, the impact that you're having with your volunteer program. We're here today to talk about technology, and there are many very simple solutions out there to help you manage your volunteer workforce, but you're not going to beat these challenges with a simple solution. So You need a smart, automated volunteer management solution to really truly engage your volunteers, and then take that next step with connecting in the databases to do some of the smart analytics that we'll be talking about today. Again, it's important to view your volunteer program as more than an operational headache where you're just getting bodies in the door to support your mission. You're looking at them a bit more strategically, but you need a technology that's able to do this 1,000 little things that make it smart. So send a birthday greeting on the volunteer's birthday. Send an automated email message as a reminder that their shift is going to start soon. Send a thank you after the shift has ended. Offer the right shift at the right time to the right volunteer who has the availability and the skills to fulfill that task. That takes a very smart system with automation in order to engage a volunteer like that. And our research shows, and what we've seen is, if you can utilize a technology that does those 1,000 little things really well, you'll get more out of your current volunteer workforce than otherwise. So we'll show you a little bit more how to do that. And your supporters are getting more demanding. You want your volunteers to have you in their pocket, so on their mobile device. Imagine your branded mobile app on your volunteers' mobile device, so that you can communicate with them over another channel, not just through the browser, not just on the computer, but on the mobile app. This increases engagement 125%. We've seen it. Creates a much faster onboarding and allows the engagement of the volunteer in the moment with the mobile device. Again, really driving the point home. Many ways you can use the mobile app for location services, for offering opportunities, and just pushing out push messages through the app, and using SMS as a channel too. So 3 channels of engagement versus just 1 on email with a browser based. So opening up that mobile channel is very critical to further engaging your volunteer workforce. So now, kind of the technical part. Breaking down the silos is what we're talking about today. That means integrating your volunteer database with your CRM. So that's the lines across the bottom there, Razor's Edge, Blackbaud's Razor's Edge, that we all know and love. So your fundraising team can understand what donors are actually volunteering. And then hopefully your volunteer management team knows which donors are in the building that day and are volunteering, so they can greet them, so they can understand who they are. Now, taking that next step even is using Blackbaud analytics services to understand, let's say you have a volunteer program that has 10,000 plus volunteers. There are thousands of high propensity donors within that 10,000 plus volunteer workforce. You need to understand who they are, and you need to understand how to engage with them. And Blackbaud can do that. And Scott's going to elaborate on that today. But Rosterfy is able to make those integrations and use triggers and event cycles to understand when to serve up those messages and how to serve those up. A couple examples. WaterAid, a nonprofit in the UK, they don't have 10,000 volunteers. They have around 800. The impact there was huge once they started using their volunteer database and engaging them with opportunities to donate. Many creative ways. They use festivals to drive fundraising. The volunteers would provide a deposit before they started their shift, At the end of the shift, they were given the option to donate that deposit, take back the deposit, or give half to the water aid and keep half. Just giving them that option, they raised $24,000 in 1 year. They paid for their Rosterfy subscription and then some, and then that led them to engage in other tactics, which had a 600,000 plus impact on their fundraising program, with only 800 volunteers total. So that's a great story. They also saw that 60% of their volunteers had volunteered with the charity before and were repeat. So they increased that by 60%. 96% of the volunteers said that they felt belonged. They felt like they belonged at WaterAid. So they were very engaged and very loyal. And they rated the communication as good or better and the right frequency than previous, to a tune of 97%. So if you can do it in the right way, it really works. Another example here, we engaged a large food bank in the US. They actually had 13,000 volunteers total. Scott will elaborate on this in a minute, but we took their volunteer database, analyzed it for propensity to give and marketing persona, and found that they were missing out on $5 to $10 million a year in possible donations. They were missing out on it by not engaging their volunteer workforce in fundraising activities, and that really resonated with the board, I can tell you, at this food bank, and we've had quite an impact there, and that's something that Blackbaud has the ability to do, as we'll discuss with any of you here today, is help you analyze your volunteer database to see what you're possibly missing out on as well. And Scott is going to take it away from here.
Thank you, Jim. So let's, you can hand me the reins. I will go ahead and share my screen.
Yep. I think you got it, Scott.
All right. Let's see if I get to my slides here. Sorry. All right, Jim, keep me honest. Can you see that first slide okay?
Yeah, we can see it just fine. Yep.
Okay, great. So what I'll say too, I think from the beginning, as you think about this, first impressions matter, sort of highlight there. I come, from that development background and fundraising in the 90s. I can empathize on the difficulty in making that decision to include combined volunteer and donor file information. I think back then the difficulty and the difference is that we were working beyond, or before the advantage of data intelligence was in the digital age. So everything we learned, everything we heard, everything we knew about individuals, volunteers and donors alike, was based on just that kind of information. So the fact that things have changed quite a bit is obviously improved that visibility. But I think ultimately the bottom line is that first impression you make and that first impression those individuals get when they come in the system is instrumental and does matter and makes a difference. So think about that first time someone's raising their hand to support your mission early on, whether that's through their time, through that talent, their voice, or money. That initial experience sets the tone for their entire supporter journey with your organization. So if those systems are kept separate, you're really unable to recognize that full scope of their involvement, very narrow kind of concentration on only what you look at in a volunteer file and take action with, only in that donor file and do the same kinds of activities. And ultimately what you're risking is them sort of feeling unseen, maybe undervalued from the very beginning. So our efforts today with the use of the smart technology, the collaborative partnership between Rosterfy and Blackbaud, and certainly Razor's Edge NXT, is to help you avoid that sort of disconnection process. How do we help kind of develop that comprehensive engagement strategy. So I think it really begins, and this is something we've learned too, along working alongside nonprofits like yours today, is that real goodness, those real measurable outcomes of success can only really happen when you stop treating your CRM like a record keeping tool and start focusing on really it being something to build relationships and a complete kind of holistic system of intelligence. I think ultimately when that is done, you go away from that singular view and open the curtain a little bit wider, and using your eyes through a different lens, you begin to look at the value propositions here in terms of increasing retention, and certainly the most important thing is you're cultivating the lifetime value and loyalty to your organization by being much more thoughtful and meaningful in the way you engage with those individuals. I think the bottom line for us too is what this does when you have that combined picture is two things: identify and segment more intelligently, and certainly you're meeting people where they are, engaging with messages that resonate with those individuals as well. So as you think about data in today's world, again, we've been doing this a long time. I've been here, again, 23 years. I think the beginning of analytics was in 2001. So quite a bit of time that we're able to use and take advantage of the best science can provide. So it's a combination of three main pieces here. Data drives it. So again, limited view and volunteer or donor files can help create some things that might stop that from being the full picture. So then we add AI to that perspective, and ultimately the expertise. A lot of this is when we are sort of looking at it in that lens, where, with that time that we've spent successfully implementing these on thousands of organizations, this process and techniques that we're going to talk about to support your work, it isn't just about relying on AI and machine learning and technology to make those decisions. We've never discounted the value of combining artificial intelligence with human intelligence, and certainly helping that to make our judgments. It's not just to, again, rely on one thing, but to enhance that perspective. And that's really what the statisticians and data scientists that we assign that do this work behind the scenes. They are studying what you learned in the past and historically, currently, what things and why things happen by looking at that information, what we might learn from that to predict a future outcome and behavior that you're trying to achieve, and then to give you very specific action plans and recommendations to take advantage of that technology, that smart technology that Jim's mentioned in that collaboration with the value of Razor's Edge NXT in-system capabilities, along with the value add with having Rosterfy intelligence and all the great things that you can have at your fingertips to take those actions with as well. Process is pretty straightforward. Again, we work with all kinds of data sets. Today, we really think it's important to focus on this action of taking volunteers. So I'll keep it in that sort of straightforward focus there. The idea is when we take your data, we're looking at all information you collect on individuals, individual volunteers, and potentially donors, studying the information you've collected, names, addresses, how they've reacted to certain solicitations or communications, what kinds of activities they're involved with when they're volunteering, again, whether it's voice, talent, other things, and then complementing that with a lot of different external data points. So by the time we're done collecting that, it's about 1,000 pieces of data that we are comparing and evaluating all the information that you gave us, so what you know about them, and our information, combining those stories together to say, these are the things we're seeing in patterns that make up the ideal donor or volunteer profile for your organization. How can we find more people like them that have these kinds of behaviors we're trying to get to, identifying those things that are the ideal. So out of 1,000, our statisticians are culling that down to the top 5 or 6 characteristics and behaviors that make up that sort of persona. And from there, we were able to then screen those volunteers through it, assign them kind of a stack ranking, a scoring system in place that allows you to really control that universe, to really know they're not just volunteers anymore to treat that same way. They may have other things they want to contribute, whether it's financial or otherwise. This is what those two combined data sets and the intelligence behind that are able to do for you in that way. leveraging our sector specific and certainly your organization specific data to deliver that kind of insight that you're looking for. I think we all can agree, if you looked at your file, what you know about it so far, your audiences are made up of very diverse individuals and generations that have different motivations, different behaviors and communication preferences. A Gen Z donor and volunteer and a Gen X donor and volunteer engage with your mission in very different ways. So they expect to be communicated with that accordingly. So I think when you look at what's displayed here, the idea is this information is going to, when you combine it, not isolate it. And again, I think if you see this information, you can kind of connect to this to different roles that people are playing in your development world. So who are the high touch major giving officers that need intelligence to make those decisions on major giving and mid-level giving? Who are the people that have ability to be generous, and how generous? What is that capability that they really have for you? And what's the best way to reach them to respond in a way that you are connecting, again, where they are at and based on what we're providing back as far as that intelligent action plan. I think hopefully when you think about that experience, it is more personal and less generic. We're trying to get you to look at these and find ways now to be much more precise in your audiences. You're not shotgun approaching. You don't want it to be generic. You want to have that very specific path and plan for every individual, and this kind of intelligence that we can bring to you that would be applied on every constituent, every volunteer, every donor in your file to give you that control. Kind of back to the story Jim mentioned earlier about that food bank experience, that intelligence was drawn actually pre-investment in our work. So we actually produced what we call an opportunity analysis prior to those individual organizations choosing to move in this direction to buy data intelligence from us and certainly acquire the Rosterfy and the Blackbaud RxD experience and technologies together collaborating, is to give you some sense, if we can, in advance, what does that volunteer file exposed in these ways provide you? So this example, again, real world food bank, better sense of if you didn't know anything, and this is where we're trying to give you the sort of imagination here. If this was the percentage of your file of volunteers that had philanthropic likelihood, you know what that audience is, and not just that they're likely to be generous. In what ways could they be generous? If you had a first level communication or solicitation, you're seeing some of those gift arrays, and it's filled in based on the percentage of the volunteer files that fall into those categories. So again, not generically sending out solicitations, but very particular ways that you can be thoughtful about mentioning the things that they are going to be most responsive to. Channels. So it's one thing to know who they are, know that they're generous or not, know what the capabilities might be, but what is it that's going to influence that decision? What channel of preference? So again, knowing in advance, again, through this analysis that we can do, and again, this is an offer we're making to everyone that's joining today or registered post webinar to be able to take advantage of these reports. But essentially, again, this particular food bank, we were able to determine from the entirety of their file what percentage was most likely to be digitally inclined, to be want to reach digitally versus direct mail versus telefund. So really nice insights. It's certainly not the details yet when we get the delivery of that project. It gets to the actual individuals. But when you're looking with leadership and board to see these percentages, it gives you some confidence that you're going to have a good perspective on what's unrealized donor volunteer growth potential, and certainly in the end, revenue growth potential or relational sort of benefits in terms of you're going to not cause attrition. It's all about that retention plan and lifetime value to the organization that we want to drive towards as well. Other engagement opportunities. Not every organization relies on the platforms of things like Giving Tuesday or Focus Only end of year, but for those that do, or at least if you were going to or want to take advantage of not just, again, shotgunning everybody to see who responds, this is a way for us to bring intelligence that is driven by programs like this. Who are better for Giving Tuesday in your file of volunteers? Who are better for end of year focused perspective? Who are better for a monthly giving solicitation versus a one-time kind of individual gift as well. Generationally, we know this is changing too. So I think as you think about, what are my generation, Gen X, the variance of who likes to be or wants to be still arm's length a bit versus those that are wanting to be hands-on. These can be great intelligence pieces to add to that perspective, especially when you think of the origin of peer-to-peer and how it's grown and changed. So it's not just about run, walk, ride sort of data that we can evaluate now. It's grown to include more DIY specific crowdfunding opportunities, GoFundMe pages on social media. So when you get this information, again, you're never having to look at the entire file and feel overwhelmed at where do you begin. If you're going to try and begin this kind of element in your fundraising and engagement streams of focus, you can look at these concentrations to say, here's the number of people, and it's all obviously related to this total size of your file. So 11% of, in this case, this example was off of a 150,000 record file. Still a good number of people to start beginning to focus on, and certainly difference between individual driven kind of peer-to-peer activity and organization driven, even if that means virtual, hybrid, or in person. So let's get ready now for some questions. We want to make sure we have time. There's a lot to think about. Again, the marriage of this technologies, the smart technologies between Blackbaud NXT, the CRM, and in Rosterfy and the data intelligence. So we want to make sure we're having time to kind of go through the things that are important to you to ask today as well. Overall, I think as we kind of think about what Jim brought into the perspective of how great it's going to be, they've perfected Rosterfy and the kinds of activities and things that you have at your fingertips, and the marriage between that and what's within system with RENXT. It really comes down to, though, really your goal is to give you, our goal is to give you kind of that data-driven view of supporters, combining the power of those systems of intelligence, making sure that you, again, right people you're engaging with at the right time, in the right ways, and it's the blending of that predictive modeling technique, the persona intelligence we shared about, those smart technology integrations, really to drive that deeper, more meaningful relationship with your supporters, especially volunteers. So back to the beginning of when I was talking, I think the idea is we want to encourage and help you be confident that that decision that you make, whether it's coming from leadership or within, to move those individuals over into the donor file system, you are going to improve that relationship. Again, make it more personalized, not remove from view the things that could be encouraging you to make different kinds of decisions with them now that you know they're financially able to give and want to give. I'll say one thing last here is that reading a recent survey really kind of called it out that the volunteers are likely to give, and more so we saw that there's patterns between and correlation between mid-level giving and volunteerism. Mid-level donors tend to be individuals that want to give more of themselves. So having opportunities to give in ways like volunteer is also important. And if you can collect that and know that early on, it's also leading towards them becoming someone that becomes a legacy donor in the end and bequest donor. So again, what you didn't know before, having that perspective now can change the game and make sure that you are, again, treating people the way you want to be treated, meeting them where they are in the generations, the things that are different about each, to make sure you're continuing that value to the lifetime to your organization commitment as well. Jim, you want to talk about, I think we just make sure we're taking this off to them afterwards, but I wanted to share sort of the last slides before we get into Q&A.
Yeah, sure. So, we talked a lot about engagement today from the volunteer management perspective. So I think what we're trying to impress upon is the systems working together. So it's very important. We all know when we have a clunky technology experience with a company or a brand that we engage with in the for-profit world, Now, and then, of course, in the nonprofit world, the volunteers, they want to be connected to your mission. They want to be engaged. Um, but if their experience is less than optimal, if there's a lot of friction for them to spend time volunteering for your mission, uh, then they're going to be less engaged. They're going to be less likely to give. And our research and our experience proves that. I mean, as a volunteer, when I log into my personal volunteer portal, I want to see the total number of hours that I volunteered. I want to see that tracked. If I want to pull down a report for that, if I'm going to give that to my company as proof of my volunteering, I need to be able to do that easily. I've given you information on my skills, my wants, my needs, my availability. So then I want to see that the opportunities that I'm served up by you to volunteer with you match what I've already told you. If I have carpentry skills, if I have a clean driving record, I want to see those in my geography that match my availability on the weekends. So again, you need a technology that can do those little things and do a lot of little things really well. And then the ability to connect with the Blackbaud solutions in a seamless way so that you can pull off the concepts that we're talking about today. I see we do have one question here. Oh, we have a few. Okay. Can I use my CRM or HR system for managing volunteers? I think that comes back to what we just talked about. You have to have a purpose-built system um, that is, especially if you have a volunteer program that has thousands of volunteers, you need some level of sophistication. You can't have a staff of 5 volunteer management folks. You just can't afford to do that, to do manual spreadsheets, to keep track of training and certifications for your volunteers, to do compliance. You have to have a system that's capable. So, no, especially for what we're talking about today, there's a lot more demanding use cases for the technology.
I would just add too, Jim, I think the value proposition we're kind of making as well is that before you take the entirety of your volunteer file over necessarily, we're trying to help qualify those individuals and make sure that once it's inside that system, that control of the universe is in your power. If they are financially inclined, you know that right away. If there are those people that are only going to be someone that can give of their time or their talent, that you're aware of those kinds of insights. So it's that power of controlling the universe in a way that you're suppressing when you need to, or surfacing up the kinds of information that makes sense to as well. But we can't do that unless that combination of the data sets occurs to kind of come process that.
We have another one. Is this system used by healthcare organizations? So I'm sure, Scott, you have some examples of data analytics in the healthcare sector.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think when you think of healthcare, very different way of operating in terms of we're talking about grateful patient screening programs. We're talking about other ways that they have volunteer inclusions in their development work. Again, we want to make sure those audiences, just like you would want to be protective of patient information when you're sharing information with a donor file based on them being someone that has the propensity to give, beyond them being someone that came into the hospital. Same thing would happen with volunteers, and making sure that we're just gaining one other aspect. They're all resources of acquisition, essentially, patients, volunteers, and we're trying to concentrate those that are best, because that's sometimes one of the reasons why people don't want to just simply send those files over, is they're uncertain where to begin. Who are the right people to engage within these ways, and they don't want to just grow their donor file to grow it, to add more and more and more people in there. It's got to be intentional and it's got to be thoughtful. So I think it's entirely for health organizations that we would encourage you, again, based on the additional data intelligence aspect to that, to make sure that fundamentally it's getting the right people in view that you need to engage with and take different actions with.
And I do want to remind everyone on the call, we do have another question or two to go over, but I wanted to remind everyone that Blackbaud is offering to do a donor database analysis for propensity to give and persona. So make sure you contact us or put it in the chat after this meeting. Another question, kind of more of a practical, tactical question. When would a volunteer ask happen?
So I think, again, back to when you get this analysis work, if you decide to move forward with data-driven decision making, we're not projecting 3 to 5 year stewardship activities often. It's one thing to get somebody in that you think is going to take time because they're a major donor prospect or mid-level. It takes a lot more time and action steps to get there. Volunteers, they're in, they're committed to your organization. But the hope is to not drive them away. I think that's what we've seen in the industry right now is this, even post-pandemic, the drop-off in volunteerism sometimes we've seen over the last few years has not been because of financial reasons in terms of them moving into the donor realm. It's because there's a mission disconnection. So I think if we can give you that full view perspective on those individuals now, and you start making those actions now before it's too late, that's going to be important for your decision making on, okay, they're in, we see right away, they're ready to go as a next campaign. Let's suggest this. This is not a perfect science. It's about probability. And the idea is this analysis and this technique that we're using is giving you the best science can provide as an edge to make those best decisions possible, to increase responsiveness, not to send it to everybody and accept what they get back. It's to give you those audiences of concentration that are captive for you.
Yeah, it's another tool. But especially for organizations that have, again, I feel like a broken record. If you have a program that has thousands of volunteers, this is an underutilized area for the fundraising team, and these are folks that want to be more engaged as well. So in our eyes, it's no lose. It's a no lose situation. Another question, can this system be used to set up reminders for training and service evaluations? This is what I struggle with. Yeah, so Rosterfy, we have a lot of learning management capabilities within our volunteer management platform. So you can use your own content. You can upload a YouTube video. You can use your SCORM files, which is what learning management solutions use. You can use it as part of the onboarding journey. Let's say you ask them to fill out the form, ask them to sign the waiver, ask them to watch this video. That's entirely possible with Rosterfy. It's a normal thing with Rosterfy. Ask them to upload a copy of their CPR certificate or clean driving record. You can save that in their file for compliance. You also have it saved that they completed the training, they watched the video. So that's another file for compliance. You can ask them questions to see if they comprehended the material. So yes, that's very much a standard part of Rosterfy, and that's part of having, a solution that can take care of the volunteer needs in a holistic fashion. So not only onboarding, scheduling, but learning, compliance, security, and rewards and recognition as well. That's the way it's the only way you can look at your volunteer program and start to be strategic is with a sophisticated technology.
I'd also say too, before you ask another question here, I think that this journey is not just about telling you the volunteers that have the propensity to do other things. It's in reverse too. You may not have seen your donors that are giving now as someone that you can engage with in ways that broaden their service commitment to the organization. So I think it's just as equally important to know what volunteers can do that you're not aware of, and the same thing goes for donors. But until we have those two data sets together to evaluate, we're not going to know, what those things. And it's not just generalistic. This is each of these things are done customized to each organization. We're not treating a healthcare, higher ed, arts and culture organization, food banks as the same. This is not templative. This is definitely customized to you. So we want to be thoughtful about that. These aren't data points that we're delivering only. These are real people we're talking about, real stories, real journeys they've had with you. We want to be respectful of that and make sure that we're always thinking about that outcome you're trying to get to personally, not just in the sector itself.
Let's see if we got any more questions in. Nothing so far. We have a few dropping off here as well too. So I think looks like we're coming to the end of the session here today. We want to thank everyone for your time and attention. And please, we will reach out. One more as just before the door closes. How much does this cost?
The usual questions.
Yeah, well, from a Rosterfy perspective, Scott can talk about from a Blackbaud perspective. From a Rosterfy perspective, our licensing starts at $7,000 a year and goes up to $10,000, $30,000, $40,000 per year. It depends on how many volunteers you want to manage. You want to manage 5,000 volunteers. That's around $15,000 per year typically. But we scale on the number of volunteers. So we can talk in more detail about that. Scott?
Yeah, I don't want to get too involved in pricing right now. I think that takes kind of somebody that's supporting, overseeing your specific account and relationship with Blackbaud. But I'll tell you that, most of the time it's looking at where you're at in terms of the number of records that we're evaluating. But on the flip side of that, doing this opportunity analysis report kind of process can ultimately possibly help save you some money. So when you're thinking about the final file makeup within Razor's Edge NXT or any other CRM, you're getting a concentration. It's giving a redefined universe that you're working with, which can end up saving you some ongoing costs and investment in the systems themselves. But we can it's all personalized to you. Where are you at in the revenues you're achieving? How many records do we have? And we can adjust with that. So I think that's something I can take offline individually and make sure that we give you very thoughtful pricing. We've got a big portfolio of solutions at Blackbaud and data intelligence. So it'd be kind of hard for me to say, this is it. We don't want to give a menu. I want to be making sure this is right fit. And that's really what my job is to do, is to make sure whatever happens, we're looking at the organization, the infrastructure of your team, what you can manage. Because the last thing we want you to do is be delivering this and it's sitting inside and not taking action with it. So we want to make sure that we're on point with that. And that's something we can discuss offline together uniquely.
Let's double check if we have any other last minute requests. Yeah, so I think that just about does it. We will send this deck out to the group that attended. So you have our contact information, and please reach out to us for analysis of your volunteer program and your volunteer database.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Appreciate the time.